I never expected a simple candy sale to turn into an unbelievable offer of love and a new life. I will never forget the day everything fell apart. My hands trembled as I stood behind the rickety table, rows of colorful candies towering in front of me. Just me, the candy, and the mounting pressure. My heart raced. It was supposed to be a fun day, raising money for my brother's hospital bills, but the air crackled with something darker. The sun beat down, scorching everything in its path. I could taste the sweet sugar on my tongue, but it was overshadowed by the bitter fear curling in my stomach. The smiles of the kids were drowned out by the anxious whispers of their parents as they eyed my table, the little ones tugging at their sleeves for a treat. I glanced around, seeking comfort from familiar faces. My best friend, Mia, stood nearby, a reassuring presence in the chaotic noise that we'd planned this day together. She always knew how to lift my spirits. But today, even her laughter felt distant. My mom's worried words echoed in my mind as she bravely tried to reassure me that everything would be okay. I had to believe her, but the reality hung heavy in the air. Then, out of nowhere, a stranger emerged. His eyes sparkled with an unsettling mix of curiosity and something else I couldn't quite place. The crowd parted like the Red Sea, leaving us alone in a world buzzing with confusion. He leaned in closer, the scent of his cologne oddly intoxicating. What if I told you there's more at stake here than just candy? His voice was smooth yet firm, like honey poured over ice. My breath hitched, and the world around us faded into a muted blur. I could hardly think with my heart thumping painfully against my ribs. What do you mean? I managed to whisper. He flashed a smile, though it felt uncomfortably predatory. Your passion for helping your brother, I have a proposition that can change everything for both of you. My mind raced. Who was this man? Why did he care? Mia caught my eye, her expression a mix of skepticism and concern. Don't listen to him, she mouthed. But curiosity gnawed at me. What if he was telling the truth? I was desperate for a miracle that I forced my eyes to stay locked with his, my heart hammering in my chest. What do you want? He pulled a piece of glimmering candy from his pocket, holding it delicately between his fingers. This isn't just any candy. It's a key to a door you've never imagined, a route to a new life. Before I could respond, an unsettling silence enveloped us. The laughter faded. The air felt thick, pressing against my lungs. In that moment, time stretched infinitely. I could feel the weight of his gaze piercing through me, digging into my deepest fears and desires. What's inside that door? I breathed, my voice barely a whisper, but it felt like the thunder of a storm. He smirked a smile that revealed just enough to send chills skittering down my spine. Only everything you've ever wished for. But it comes with a cost. What did he mean? A cost? My heart sank. Questions swirled in my mind like a tempest. With every beat, urgency gripped me tighter. Was I brave enough to ask what he wanted? My brother's health was at stake. Before I could voice my thoughts, he turned and vanished into the crowd, leaving me shaking and bewildered. The echoes of his words hung around me like mist, thick with uncertainty. In that moment, something inside me began to unravel. I knew this was not simply a candy sale anymore. It was the beginning of something far beyond what I could comprehend. A turning point, loaded with secrets and hidden dangers. What was this mystery he left in his wake? The world around me faded, leaving only my racing heart and a question that clung to my soul like a shadow. Would I dare to find out what lay beyond the doorway he spoke of? Hey, before we continue with this amazing story, I need to give you an important heads up. Many subscribers have reported that YouTube unsubscribed them without warning. Take a quick second to check the red button below to make sure you're still subscribed to the channel. I'd hate for you to miss any of the exclusive content coming soon. And while you're there, smash that like button. It really helps me out with the algorithm. Oh, and tell me in the comments, which city are you watching from? I love getting to know every amazing person who's part of this community. Your participation makes all the difference. Let's connect. The sun dipped low in the sky as the candy sale went on, casting long shadows that danced across the pavement. I stood there, rooted to the spot, my mind spinning with the stranger's words, while the world around me continued to pulse with life. Children squealed with delight, hands sticky with melted sugar, as parents exchanged hurried conversations. But here I was, trapped in a web of choices that felt impossibly heavy. Mia's voice broke through my haze. You okay? You look like you've seen a ghost." Her brow furrowed in concern, and it struck me how lucky I was to have her by my side. I forced a smile, but it withered. "Just thinking about that guy?" she asked, eyeing the thinning crowd. "He seemed sketchy." "Don't let him get into your head." I took a deep breath, trying to shake off the unsettling grip of the stranger's offer. But the doubt lingered like a shadow, haunting my thoughts. What if he's not? What if he really could help my brother? Mia crossed her arms, her voice steady. "No one just gives something for nothing, especially not in a place like this. Please promise me you won't pursue it." Forcing my gaze to meet hers, I saw my own fear reflected back at me. "I can't just dismiss it, Mia. What if stop? Just stop. Your brother's health is what matters. Focus on that." Her voice was sharp, but there was a tenderness behind it. I knew she cared. Her heart was just as heavy with worries as mine. A couple approached, their faces lined with concern but their eyes warm. They stepped forward, eyes scanning the colorful offerings on the table. "How's your brother doing?" The woman's voice was gentle, and I felt a flicker of warmth at their kindness. Tiny reminders that even in chaos, there were pockets of goodness, still in need of help. I murmured, my heart aching as I fought back tears. "This sale is partly for his bills." The man nodded, pulling out his wallet. "Would like to help." He purchased a mountain of candy, leaving me with a tip so generous it brought fresh tears to my eyes. In that fleeting moment, it felt like hope-like kindness was enough to balance the weight pressing down on my chest. But as they walked away, the comforting warmth dissipated, replaced once more by the darkness of the stranger's proposition. Just then, a commotion a few tables down captured my attention. I caught sight of a mother frantically shouting for her child, a boy with tousled hair, who had wandered too far into the throng. The palpable fear rippling through the crowd reminded me of the stakes at play during this day. I turned back to my candy table, my spirit dampening under the weight of the world around me. "Maybe it's for the best," I whispered to myself. "It's just candy." Yet the golden piece from the stranger lingered in my pocket like a secret sin, reminding me of possibilities I dared not voice. Mia pulled my attention back, her face etched with determination. "Let's grab a drink. You need to clear your head. I don't want you to be alone with those thoughts." As we walked toward the food stall, the tension I had felt began to crack slightly. Maybe I just needed a moment of normalcy. But the moment I glanced back towards my table, I froze. A figure stood there, inches away from the sweets, and he was no longer a stranger but the man from before. My heart raced again, but this time the tide of confusion mixed dangerously with fear. He met my gaze, a knowing smile playing on his lips. "You didn't think I'd let you leave without a taste of what might await you, did you?" "I told you to leave me alone," I replied more forcefully than intended, a pulse of adrenaline awakening every instinct I had to run. "Not until you know what's possible." He leaned closer, and I could feel the crowd around us fade, their laughter, their lives, slipping away into a blurring backdrop. "What if I told you that this candy is more than just a key? It's the blueprint to a better future, but you must decide, quickly." I swallowed hard, panic bubbling in my chest. "Decide what?" "You're not making sense. Everything comes at a cost, and time is running out." His words cut through the air, leaving it chilling. Silence in their wake. The world collapsed into a singular moment, and the choice before me felt impossibly vast. My brother's illness wouldn't wait, and maybe, just maybe, the answer lay in the piece of candy still resting in my pocket, the sweet promise of a life I dared to hope for. But then, he leaned in even closer, his voice a whisper that sent tremors through me. "But I'm not the only one who knows about your brother's plight." With that, my world tilted again. Who else knew? Who else was watching? The shadows lengthened around us as the heaviness of the choice tightened, urging me forward into the dark. Each heartbeat echoed the question rippling through my mind. Was I ready to face what lay beyond that door, whatever it was? As I stood there, frozen in uncertainty, the stranger's eyes locked onto mine, unyielding and expectant. The noise of the festival faded further, becoming a distant hum, as if standing on the precipice of something monumental. My heart pounded in rhythm with the question that echoed in the depths of my thoughts. Who else was watching? Before I could process my fear, everything spiraled inward, urging me to confront the truth. "What do you mean?" I managed to choke out, my voice barely above a whisper. He grinned. revealing something unsettlingly sharp behind his charm. Let's just say that your brother's situation has attracted attention, good and bad. Those who know can help, and those who want to exploit can and will. You stand at a crossroads, my friend. The word friend dripped with insincerity, making me bristle. Behind every word, I sensed a depth I couldn't quite fathom, a mixture of desperation and potential that gnawed at my insides. With my brother's health hanging by a thread, it was a difficult truth to wrestle with. What was the price of hope? I glanced over at Mia, whose laughter floated over from the food stall. She was chatting with a vendor, her face lit with joy, oblivious to the darkness spiraling within me. The juxtaposition of her easy smile against my turmoil was nearly unbearable. I can't get involved in anything shady, I shot back defiantly. I need to protect my brother, not put him at risk. The stranger leaned closer, his eyes narrowing just slightly. You're already in the depths of risk, whether you admit it or not. But what if I tell you there's a way out? A chance to secure his future before it's too late? His words danced dangerously on the line between promise and a threat. I swallowed hard, torn between a burning desire for answers and the instinct to run. What do you know about my brother? I asked, my tone harsher than I intended. He chuckled softly, as though enjoying the power he wielded. More than you'd care to know. But if you're curious, perhaps it's worth your while to come for a walk. I'm not asking for much, just a moment of your time. Something drew me into his web. There was an undeniable desperation to know what he knew, a thread of hope woven with trepidation trailing behind it. I took a step back, surveying the scene around me once more. My fellow townsfolk wandered, blissfully unaware of the battles raging beneath the surface. No, I don't think I will. I need to stay with my friends. Very well, he shrugged, though something glinted in his eyes, an unsettling approval of my resolve. But understand this, the clock is ticking. You might find you have fewer choices than you believe, and he'll be around if you change your mind. With that, he turned, melding back into the crowd, leaving me grasping at the remnants of his presence. The world raced on, and I was left with my thoughts and the sweet piece of candy that hummed with daunting possibilities in my pocket. Was it truly a lifeline, or merely a mirage promising something unattainable? I found Mia again, who had just returned with 2 drinks, her bubbly demeanor soaking into me like sunshine. You okay? She asked, her eyes searching mine. I am fine, I lied, yet I could feel my heart racing, still rattled by my encounter with the stranger. Are you sure? You look a little pale. Did that guy say something to you? He just made me feel uneasy, I admitted, finding comfort in this moment of vulnerability. But I won't let him get to me. Mia nodded, though the crease in her brow suggested she didn't fully believe me. Let's focus on the rest of the sale. You're bringing hope to so many, your brother included. We need those funds to keep flowing. I forced a smile, but the darkness lingered, creeping into the edges of my thoughts. Right. We spent the next hour mingling, selling candy, and catching up with friends, but I couldn't shake the grip of that stranger's words. Each time someone stepped up to the table, I studied their face, wondering if they might be the next to offer help or hinder. Yet just as my spirits began to lift, the festival announcer's voice crackled through the speakers, sending a wave of adrenaline through me. Ladies and gentlemen, would like to remind you about the raffle starting soon. Don't forget to purchase your tickets for a chance to win valuable prizes, including something extraordinary from our mystery donor. A chill ran down my spine. Was this connected somehow to him? Perhaps the same mystery swirling around my brother's plight? Minutes turned to moments, each one stretching unbearably as I contemplated whether I could risk it all for the chance of retrieving whatever help this raffle could bring. Mia, I finally said, my heart racing. Do you think the raffle could help us? She raised an eyebrow, shifting her weight. Possibly, but it requires more money than we might have. Remember, we're doing this to pay for bills, not gamble on a chance. Right, I mumbled, feeling the familiar weight of impossibility pressed down on me. But it was then that a young girl approached, her eyes shining with excitement, clutching a handful of crumpled bills. Mister, can I buy candy? She asked shyly. A wave of warmth washed over me again, the innocence in her voice reigniting a small spark of hope. Of course you can. What would you like? As she sifted through the options, I felt a surge of energy coursing through me, a reminder of the joy that small acts of kindness could bring. Perhaps the tide of despair could shift if I stayed anchored to hope. That's when I caught sight of the stranger at the edge of the crowd once more, watching me with an intensity that sent tremors through my core. There was something new in his Gauzian urgency that screamed to be heard. And in the echoes of my heart, I wondered what emotion would emerge victorious as the clock ticked on. Would I grasp at the fleeting kindness around me, or take the leap into uncertainty? MIA's voice broke my reverie. Hey, let's get back to selling, okay? But as I turned away from the haunting gaze of the stranger, the uncertainty pulled me deeper into a well of conflict. The weight of my choices thickened like fog. Would the next hour offer clarity or condemnation? I clutched the candy in my pocket tightly. One step forward felt heavy with consequence, while the lure of something beyond my understanding loomed, taunting me from just out of reach. What awaited me when I finally decided to embrace the darkness that promised hope? The laughter and festivities of the festival encircled me like a vibrant tapestry, but I was woven into a darker thread, fraying at the edges. I tried to refocus on the cheerful exchange with the little girl, her excitement palpable as she picked out her favorite flavors. Each moment of joy felt like a reprieve. It kept the heartache momentarily at bay. Still, the stranger's presence loomed just beyond, a persistent shadow whispering at the edges of my consciousness. Mia chatted with other festival-goers, her energy contagious, but I felt like an imposter in my own skin, painted with worry. The candy table felt too much like a mask, concealing the growing fears I carried for my brother. The sounds of laughter mixed with the ghost humming of the stranger's words, his insinuations echoing like a warning bell. Hey, MIA's voice cut through my thoughts. You still with me? I gave her a half-hearted smile, trying to shake off the dread clinging to my back. Yeah, just thinking. About the raffle? She asked gently, her kindness disarming. About everything, really. My voice quaked against the swirling doubts in the air between us. She took a breath, searching my eyes. Look, whatever is going on, we'll figure it out together. We've always said that through thick and thin. You don't have to face things alone. Her words warmed me, a gentle reminder of the bond we shared. Whether we were selling candy or battling life's formidable trials, Mia had a way of anchoring me back to the present. Thanks for being here, I whispered, grateful for her light. But as the day melted into dusk, the shadow of the stranger morphed into something more menacing. My resolve began to falter as glimmers of desperation nudged their way into my heart. How many scenarios were playing out in the depths of my mind? With each ticket sold, I couldn't shake the notion that time was slipping between my fingers like grains of sand. As I resumed selling and cheerful laughter rang around me, a figure approached. My heart skipped. It was the stranger, appearing forward and unapologetic, weaving through the crowd with purpose. Dread seeped into my bones. Did you think I'd let this chance slip away? He remarked, his voice low but brimming with competition. Tonight, the offer only becomes sweeter. I stiffened, casting a wary glance toward Mia, who was busy helping another customer. I stepped away from the table, drawn in despite my instincts screaming at me to run. What do you want? For you to see the reality before you. There's more at stake than your brother's health. There's opportunity everywhere, and I could help you access it. Opportunity? I echoed. His choice of words hung like a promise and a thread intertwined. Imagine trading this, he gestured towards the bustling festival, for a life where you and your brother can thrive. All it takes is one leap, and I can be your guide. I wanted to scream, to throw back his offer like a bitter poison. But hope was fragile, flailing within me as I thought of my brother's lingering illness, of doctors' somber faces, and of the money rapidly disappearing in stacks of bills. Why should I trust you? His lips curled into a sly smile. Because down every shadowy path lies a light. You might just discover yours. For an agonizing heartbeat, I considered his words. What if he was right? What if this was the harbinger of change? Maybe I was meant to seek the unconventional to secure my brother's future. But the price of that hope loomed like a dark storm cloud, unfathomable and foreboding, that I took a step back, my heart racing. What is this supposed to mean? Suddenly, a commotion erupted at the edge of the festival. A loud scream pierced through laughter, and I turned instinctively towards the noise, my heart in my throat as panic washed over the crowd. And amidst the chaos, someone bumped into Mia, her drink flying from her hands, the sugary slush crashing to the ground in vivid colors. As she bent to clean up the spill, her expression shifted from surprise to fear. directed at the stranger just nearby. Is everything all right? I called out, rushing over, my protective instincts kicking into gear. Mia stood frozen, trembling as she met my frantic gaze. It's just the raffle prize. There's something happening. In that moment, clarity pierced through the fog of my indecision. The raffle was about to culminate in a revelation. Was it hope truly being offered, or was it a gamble, one I couldn't afford to lose? Suddenly, the stranger moved forward, effortless and composed. Don't worry, Mia, he said smoothly. Sometimes, beautiful things emerge from chaos. Just then, the announcer's voice boomed again, louder and more insistent. And now, for our grand reveal. Our extraordinary prize from our mystery donor, an exclusive opportunity that could change lives. One individual will receive. The crowd surged. Excitement rippled through the air. I grasped Mia's arm tightly, urging her to remain close as time stood still. I felt the buzz of anticipation vibrating beneath my skin, the raw electricity of uncertainty hovering in the air, thick enough to cut. And just as the announcer was about to reveal the prize, I turned to the stranger in desperation, ready to call out for clarity. But instead, his eyes caught mine, glinting with something I hadn't seen before. Determination. Seize this moment, before it slips away, he urged, kneeling closer, his breath a mere whisper against my skin. You may find answers you never sought. But as I opened my mouth to respond, the announcer shouted the name of the winner. And at that moment, I felt as if the world shifted beneath me. The crowd erupted, but I was only focused on that one name, the name of someone I knew far too well. Heart pounding and stomach tumbling. The realization seized me like cold steel. As the cheers echoed around, hope twisted into something unrecognizable, shrouded in fear of the unknown. What had I just witnessed? What would it mean for my brother, for me, for any chance at a way out? The night darkened, promising triumph while casting long shadows of uncertainty. And in those frozen seconds, I took a single, shaky breath, realizing that perhaps this was just the beginning of a journey I could never have anticipated, a confrontation that would challenge everything I believed about hope, love, and the choices we make in the face of desperation. The festival, once a sanctuary of joy, now felt like a vibrant prison, its colors dulling with each heartbeat. As the cheers of celebration enveloped me, they turned hollow, echoing the gravity of what I had just learned. The name announced rang like a death knell in my ears, reverberating with the harsh reality that lay before me. The crowd surged in joy, laughter spilling like confetti all around us. But as I stood there frozen, heart racing, the air cracked with tension, layering the brightness of the festival in shadows. I glanced at Mia, whose face twisted in confusion, but she quickly masked it with a smile she didn't quite feel. Who won? She asked, looking for answers amid the ruckus. Before I could respond, a ripple of movement drew my gaze back to the stage where the winner was pulling their way through the throng, their face lit with unrestrained joy. As the person emerged from the crowd, a sinking dread clawed at my insides, threatening to consume me. It was Sarah, my childhood friend, someone I hadn't seen in years, someone who had disappeared from my life as abruptly as the laughter of children faded at dusk. She and I had once shared everything, from dreams of adventure to whispered secrets, but she had vanished completely when her family moved across the country. Now, Sarah stood before me, clad in a vibrant purple dress that seemed to dance with the festival lights, the very picture of happiness. My God, it's you, she called, her voice a melody slicing through the noise. But there was an ear-splitting clarity in her words that hit me harder than I anticipated. I didn't know you'd be here. The crowd's jubilation faded into background noise as we stood suspended in a moment that felt simultaneously like home and alien. I forced myself to respond, pushing down the whirlpool of emotions threatening to overwhelm me. Sarah, I didn't expect to see you. She rushed toward me and enveloped me in a tight hug, the kind that temporarily held my fears at bay, even when everything around us felt unmoored. I can't believe it. I won. This is incredible. Her eyes sparkled with the thrill of uncharted possibilities that I forced a smile, but inside my heart was heavy, weighed down by the fear of vulnerability. That's amazing, I managed, playing along, my mind racing with the implications of her unexpected return and her sudden fortune. What do you plan to do with it? With a gleam of excitement, She replied, I'm going to start a nonprofit. I want to help children with health issues, like those who struggle with the same things I went through. Her words took me aback. What was her life like now? I felt envious of her newfound determination, but a flicker of hope ignited deep within my chest. You could really make a difference, I said, conscious of my voice wavering, betraying the storm within. Thank you. I want to do good in the world, you know? It's time to give back, she continued, her enthusiasm palpable. The shadows momentarily receded as we spoke, revealing glimmers of light that hinted at shared purpose and understanding. Yet, my heart ached for my brother, the thoughts of his faltering health rushing back to the forefront. I wish I could do more, I admitted, my words tugging painfully at my throat. My brother he's not doing well. And we just don't have the resources, Sarah's smile faltered, and her brow furrowed with concern. I'm so sorry to hear that. Is there anything I can do? Instantly, I felt torn. Sarah was seeing her dreams come true, while mine were unraveling before my eyes. I don't know. Everything feels so impossible. A flicker of empathy glimmered in her compassionate gaze. If you ever need help, please reach out. We can figure something out together. But as kind as her words were, they only deepened the chasm between my hopes and worries. I felt like a puppet entangled in strings fraying at the edges, wishing to reach out to her, yet fearful of what that might bring. Suddenly, the stranger's voice cut through my thoughts like a sharp knife, disrupting the fragile connection we had forged. You think this is mere coincidence? He said, stepping forward, his enigmatic presence a stark reminder that opportunities always came at a price. It was fate that brought you together tonight, but can you recognize the potential before you? There it was again, his thinly veiled insinuation that perhaps more intertwined than we realized was precariously hanging in the balance. The way he looked at me made my skin crawl, and I felt the anxiety flood me anew. Leave her alone, I snapped, my protective instincts surging like wildfire, fueled by the urgency of wanting to shield not only myself, but also the warmth of my childhood friend. With a dismissive wave, he chuckled softly. I'm merely offering perspective. When the universe aligns, it does so for a reason. Do you truly want to turn away from what you can achieve here tonight? Sarah watched us, uncertainty creasing her brow, and my heart ached at the thought of introducing a rift between us so soon. This is about me, not you. It's about what you can do to help, she said softly but firmly, grounding us back to purpose. In that moment of shared resolve, it felt like the universe indeed had conspired for something significant to unfold. The weight of despair seemed to lift, replaced by the promise of solidarity and hope. But just as I allowed myself to envision a glimmer beyond this turmoil, the stranger spoke once more. Remember, every choice shapes the path ahead. The question is, are you ready to embrace your destiny? His eyes bore into mine, the challenge evident within them. The world felt like it shifted again, tension sparking anew in my veins. The festival, once an escape, had metamorphosed into a battleground of dreams, fear, and choices. Kaladinga, place where hope could either flourish or be trampled underfoot. As I stood there, my pulse quickening, I knew that every word spoken from then on would carry unspeakable weight. I felt the stakes rising high, the future not only uncertain but dangerously complex. The decisions ahead would ripple through my life, shifting everything I held dear. And as we faced the growing chaos of the festival around us, I wondered, would this night mark the beginning of a new chapter or the end of everything I knew? The lights of the festival pulsed brightly against the darkening sky, illuminating the faces of revelers who spun and danced around us, each lost in their world of joy and laughter. Yet, I felt tethered to a darker reality, like a ghost haunting my own life. The sight of Sarah's radiant smile rekindled memories from a time when innocence flourished, but it also drew the curtain on the new, painful chapters one had been forced to endure. Destiny, I echoed quietly, the word hanging bitterly in my throat. It felt both exhilarating and terrifying, a call to action wrapped in uncertainty. Did the cosmos truly conspire for me? Did fate have a plan when my brother's health dangled by a thread? Hey, want to grab something to eat? Sarah suggested, her enthusiasm unwavering in the face of my internal struggle. Sure, I replied, needing a diversion. The chaotic energy of the festival seemed less daunting when I was occupied. We wove through the crowd, and I stole glances around me, half expecting the stranger to appear again and remind me of the decisions weighing on my heart. As we found a small food stall selling cotton candy in vivid swirls of color, Sarah instantly transformed, her earlier worries forgotten. "They'll get us some," she said, bouncing on her toes. Her exuberance was infectious, and I felt the corners of my mouth twitching upwards despite the tightness in my chest over my brother's plight. While she waited, I leaned lightly against a wooden fence, allowing the music to wash over me, momentarily lost in the delight of her presence. But the moment was fragile, a gossamer thread at the mercy of a sudden gust. "Here you go? 2 giant clouds of sweetness," she declared, returning with the sugary treats on sticks, her joy igniting like fireworks. As we wandered slightly away from the bustling crowds, I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned to find Mia, standing there with a sheepish grin. Her expressions were familiar, reminding me of our shared secrets and late-night talks. "Hey, I thought you might need some support," Mia said, her voice tender as she stepped closer. Her reassuring presence felt like an anchor in this tempest of emotions. "Thanks, I really appreciate it," I replied, my heart swelling with gratitude. "I'm just processing a lot." Immediately, the carefree atmosphere around us dimmed under the weight of my unspoken feelings. Mia understood without needing to pry. "Is it about your brother?" she asked softly. I nodded, trying to swallow the emotions rising like bile in my throat. "He's not well, and I don't know how to help. It's hard watching him suffer while I feel so helpless." Mia's expression transformed, a flash of anger at the world around us shadowing her features. "You're not alone in this, you know," she said fiercely. "We can find a way to do something. Together." That singular word hung in the air, together, casting a light amidst the shadowed uncertainties that loomed over my heart. I felt a warmth unfurl within me, beckoning to hope. "Really? You'd want to help?" "Of course. We've got to fight this." "I'm here for you," she replied firmly, her eyes glistening with unwavering resolve. Just as I was allowing the moment to fill me with courage and possibility, a gust of wind swept through the festival, violent and unexpected. The colorful decorations fluttered chaotically, and my heart raced as the music abruptly cut out silence, swallowing the once lively atmosphere. An unyielding energy shifted in the air, tightening around us with urgency. Just beyond the confines of the food stall, I caught sight of that stranger again, the enigmatic man with the penetrating gaze. He stood there, still as a statue, surveying the chaos with an almost predatory interest. "Why do you stand there?" I called out, trying to keep my voice steady. His presence felt like an electric jolt, both alluring and unnerving. "Because the story is not yet complete," he replied, his voice smooth and sonorous. "What happens next is purely up to you." A flare of panic coursed through me. What did he mean? As he stepped forward, the crowd had resumed its joyful upheaval, the melody returning but slightly altered, filled with an underlying tension. "Each moment is a choice," he emphasized, his eyes boring into mine, "and what you decide will not just shape your fate, but all those around you." I turned to Sarah, standing nearby, her cotton candy momentarily forgotten as concern etched across her face. I could see the wheels turning in her mind, the weight of my brother's situation now fully evident, but the unspoken bond between us flickered tenuously, filled with uncharted territory. "Make your decision, and choose wisely," the stranger continued, his ominous presence inching closer. "The offer of change is right before you. But be aware the cost could be greater than you anticipate." I felt dizzy, the world spinning as I grappling with the choice laid out before me. Do I embrace the weight of Sarah's newfound opportunity, risking everything for the hope of a brighter future for my brother? Or do I retreat back into the shadows of fear, letting my brother's health dictate my world? The festival pulsed around me, a kaleidoscope of possibility, tainted with dread. Each choice I faced became steeped in meaning, the path ahead filling me with uncertainty and tumult. As the music swelled once more, rallying the joyful spirits of the crowd, I stood at the precipice of the unknown, acutely aware that a single decision could set this whirlwind into motion. In the rush of realization, the enormity of my situation washed over me anew, each heartbeat echoing a fact I now understood as I turned towards Sarah and Mia. "Are you ready for a change?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper, my heart racing with trepidation. But as the words left my lips, I could not shake the feeling that whatever choice I made was only the beginning of something far more profound and terrifying. Before I could grasp their responses, a sudden commotion erupted behind the stage, a cascade of panicked voices cutting through the festive rhythm. My heart sank as I turned to see the gatherings shift, the blissful evening unraveling into chaos. The call of hope and fear reached a tipping point. All the choices I hadn't yet made loomed ominously, heavy like a storm brewing on the horizon, ready to break. The chaos behind the stage reverberated through the festival like a shockwave, sending reverberations not just through the crowd, but into the very marrow of my bones. I felt an involuntary clench in my stomach, a premonition that something was off-kilter in the universe, something ominous. Mia grabbed my arm, her grip firm. "We need to check this out," she urged, her determination ignited by the rising tension. Sarah's face mirrored a mix of concern and curiosity, her cotton candy forgotten, drooping momentarily in her grasp like our threads of normalcy. "Wait," I shouted, trying to hold on to the fleeting sense of clarity amidst mounting panic. "Let's stay put for now. We can't get caught up in people are scared." Sarah cut in, her voice trembling but resolute. She nodded toward the backstage area where a splinter of people had begun gathering in a frenzy, shouts alternating between fear and confusion. "We can help, maybe it's an emergency." Swallowing my own uncertainty, I watched the throngs of festival-goers, faces painted with fear rather than joy. The atmosphere crackled dangerously, an electric charge prickling along my skin, and I realized that I could no longer separate this moment from my internal struggle, nor could I ignore the stranger's words trailing behind me like a menacing shadow. "That I can't just stand back," I said, finding a resolve I hadn't known was buried inside. I looked from Mia to Sarah, seeing both fear and determination reflected in their eyes. "Let's go." We edged closer to the source of the disturbance, the music fading behind us as the crowd chanted in anxious anticipation. A circle began to form, whispering voices swirling like leaves caught in a whirlwind. As we squeezed through, I tried to quell the unease tightening in my chest, but with every step, the weight of possibility pressed further down. What could possibly be happening? My mind raced to follow the strands of what crises could unfold in this peaceful atmosphere, and just as quickly, it leaped to my brother. Would this fear eclipse my chance to act when it mattered most? As we broke into the inner circle, I gasped at the sight before us. In the middle lay a young girl, no older than 10, lying on the ground, her face pale and clammy, while her mother knelt beside her, frantically calling her name, desperation in her voice as she pleaded for her daughter to wake up. Panic swept through the small crowd, each face painted with concern and helplessness reflecting my own turmoil. "Someone call for help," a voice cried, and I felt a fresh wave of determination surge through me. "She needs a paramedic." That's when I heard the whisper of my brother's name echoing in my ears, urging me to step forward to not just witness this tragedy, but to act. "Mia, Sarah, listen," I said urgently. "We need to help. I can't just stand here. I have this feeling." But before I could articulate my thoughts, the stranger's gaze pierced through the crowd, alighting on me with an intensity that shook me to my core. He seemed to appear from nowhere, weaving through the throngs with an unnatural grace. His aura buzzed with the energy of his last cryptic message. "Have you made your choice yet?" he murmured softly, his voice almost lost in the growing roar around us. "Choice," I repeated dumbly, every nerve in my body screaming for action, yet also paralyzed by the weight of what I was about to offer. "Remember," he said, stepping even closer, his dark eyes now swirling with something captivating. "You can take a risk, make the choice to embrace love or curl into fear. But once you leap, there's no going back. Is that what this is about? Love?" I asked, my voice shaky, fear mingling with a budding glimpse of hope. "If I try to help her, does that mean I might lose everything I care about?" "There's always a price," he replied, a hint of sadness shadowing his features. "But there's also potential for Maureen." Unexpected light. That I looked back to where the mother wept over her daughter. The small face, streaked with tears, resonated deep within my heart. It mirrored my own anxieties about my brother and his struggles. It was as if fate had delivered me a vital choice wrapped in a desperate plea. "Now," Sarah said urgently, her voice snapping me back to the present. What do we do? In that moment, the weight of the universe balanced on my shoulders. I could choose to run, to cower in the shadows of uncertainty, or I could step forward into the luminosity of connection, the unpredictable path of love layered with risks. "I'm going," I announced with newfound ferocity. "We have to help her." As I knelt beside the girl, adrenaline coursed through me, a sharpened clarity piercing my emotional haze. No longer just a spectator, I dove into the moment, wishful dreams of saving the little girl colliding with fears of what it meant. In the frenzy of strangers rushing to assist, I felt Mia and Sarah close by, a solid reminder that I was not alone. Together, we reached for the child, hearts pounding in unison, intentions unspoken yet understood. That a sudden wail erupted from the other side of the circle, a voice I recognized. My brother's name burst forth from the crowd, and I turned in horror to see him stumbling through the panicked throng, his face ashen, eyes wide with terror. "Where is she?" he shouted, pushing past everyone in a frantic search, panic-fueled dread taking over him. Every fiber of my being leapt in response, a tumult of emotions crashing over me as I felt the gravity of what was unfolding. I could see then that the costs of my earlier revelations loomed larger than I could have envisioned. And now I was faced with another choice, a decision that could alter the course of not just my brother's fate, but also the delicate balance of my own heart. "Don't!" I screamed, even as I reached toward him. But the weight of the moment was now unmistakable. It seemed that the spiraling chaos of life would not be contained, revealing the undeniable truth that hope and heartbreak often walked hand in hand toward the unknown. As I watched my brother lurch forward, his panic-stricken face emblazoned with familiar anguish, I felt a jolt of realization echo within me. This moment was becoming a vortex that would pull us all in. I couldn't afford to think about the implications, what he might uncover, what darkness might rear its head if he caught sight of the girl. The stakes had escalated, the choice shifting like sands beneath my feet. "Please, don't come any closer," I yelled, horrified that he might spiral into a whirlwind of chaos. I grabbed his arm, desperate to ground him, to protect him from the storm brewing within the crowd. He shrugged off my touch, eyes wild and searching. "Where is she? What's happening?" His desperation tugged at my heartstrings, threatening to shatter the fragile hope I'd just begun to seize. Behind us, the faces of those gathered softened as they formed a gentle encirclement around us, whispers shifting into shared concern. The girl lay still, and I felt the fight within me intertwining with the looming dread. The stranger's words wrapped around my mind, a tight band of uncertainty pulling hard. "Love or fear? Stay here, please," I implored, my voice cracking as I scanned his face, searching for a pathway back to calm. "Let me handle this for now." The impulse to shield my brother called like an unseen force, capturing the fragile balance of our fragile reality. Suddenly, another heart-wrenching scream erupted from the mother, her voice piercing like a dagger in my chest as she cradled her child. "Somebody help, please." For a fleeting moment, I felt the collective weight of despair settle on us like a heavy shroud. I could see it written in the eyes of the crowd, the helplessness that mirrored our own fears. My brother, however, remained oblivious, a beacon of urgency amid the stillness that blanketed us all. "That I can't just stand idly by," he murmured, grief tightening his features, and in that instant, a spark ignited within me. What if this chaos, this moment of shared suffering, could be transformed into something hopeful? As my heart wrestled between dread and resolution, I turned back to my brother. "You might be able to help," I suggested, piecing together my words carefully. "Your instincts, your strength, it might save her." "Help how?" He spat back, frustration surging from a well of vulnerability. "What do I know about saving a life? Sometimes it's just about being there," I said gently, desperation tinged with hope glimmering in my voice. "Listen to me." I gestured toward the small gathering where medics were now arriving, dispatched into the vortex. "We're all part of this. Your presence alone might make this better." He hesitated, and I could feel the pull of fear threatening to undo both of us. But then, an unexpected warmth washed over him. There was a hint of understanding, recognition beneath the layers of terror. As the medics knelt beside the girl, focusing their attention on her frail form, I saw my brother gather himself, a quiet determination igniting in his eyes. "Okay," he said, turning back toward me briefly before moving forward. Let's do this. Watching him step toward the scenario, I felt an array of emotions crashing together, gratitude mingled with anxiety, hope interwoven with uncertainty. We had both stepped out into the unknown, but the echoes of the past surrounded us, a chorus of our ambitions and regrets. In that moment, as I knelt back down to the girl's side, I squeezed my eyes shut against the weight of fear coiling tightly around my heart. Could we bring her back to this world of light, this festival of color? The risk was palatable. All I had to hold on to now was an unyielding glimmer of faith. Within the crowd, the compassion of strangers showed its true colors. A woman beside me produced a small handkerchief, dabbing it against the girl's forehead with trembling hands. "You're not alone," she murmured softly, her voice a soothing balm amidst the chaos. And then a child's laughter echoed somewhere in the distance, a sharp contrast to the pandemonium. It wafted through the air, cutting through despair like a beam of light. I looked up, searching the horizon, caught momentarily by the innocence fluttering just beyond reach. Could we find that laughter again, even in the surroundings of this fraught moment? As the medics worked, the urgency draping the air became palpable. Every heartbeat stretched thin, echoing the tender fragility of life, the perfect rhythm of chaos that drew us together, yet threatened to tear us apart. In that instant, I caught my brother's eye. In the depth of his gaze, I saw not only fear, but determination converging with love. Then, something shifted. The girl stirred, a faint flicker of a breath escaping her lips. A ripple of hope rippled through the crowd. "That's it," someone cried, an unexpected surge of encouragement emanating from the very edges of this epic. But before I could fully process, the emerging light and ominous voice rose from the crowd, sending chills racing down my spine. "We don't know who she is." The stranger's voice cut through the air, icy and probing. "What if she's a link to something darker?" The crowd fell silent, tension spiraled, and in that moment, I realized this was just the beginning. A truth was waiting to be unearthed, entwined within the threads of love and fear, promising rewards but lurking with shadows. Uncertainty settled heavily on my chest. I couldn't shake the weight of these revelations. And just as swiftly, the aura of possibility twisted into something raw, a challenge sharper than any before. With hearts racing and shadows closing in, this moment loomed larger than I had envisioned. The stakes had risen, and we were traversing a precipice on the verge of everything unraveling. What awaited us as uncovering truth collided with our desires for connection? The tension in the air was thick, swirling like the clouds before a storm. My brother and I stood on the precipice of uncertainty, our eyes locked on the girl as she fought for consciousness. The whispers in the crowd lingered like an unwanted specter, escalating the urgency creeping through me. "Who is she?" A voice echoed from the periphery, growing louder. "What if she's part of something sinister? What if—" "Stop," I said, my voice piercing through the unease. "She's just a girl. Look at her, she needs help, not judgment. Whatever darkness you think is looming here, we can't let it stifle our compassion." A wave of uncertainty felt almost tangible. My heart raced as I faced the growing skepticism of the crowd, some eyes narrowing, others shifting uncomfortably. For a moment, clarity danced alongside fear. Was this what it meant to step into the unknown, to advocate for the vulnerable even when the world seemed poised against you? I held my breath, allowing a flicker of hope to break through the haze of doubt. And then, as if in response to my call for solidarity, another person stepped forward, a young man, unshaken by the chaotic energy swirling around us. He placed a hand on my shoulder, grounding me. "She's one of us, isn't she? If we don't stand together, what hope will we have?" His voice echoed with a tenderness that reverberated against the walls of fear I had been battling. "Yes," I exclaimed, buoyed by his kindness. It felt like a lifeline thrown amidst an ocean of despair. His affirmation cascaded through the crowd, igniting a shared commitment that slowly replaced the lingering doubts that had previously restrained them. My brother, having steadied himself, joined us, eyes fierce with resolve. "We can't afford to lose anyone today. That means we all have to come together and support her, no matter what. Let's work as a team, just like we used to." A subtle murmuring passed through the gathered faces, a flicker of understanding growing in the light of our shared humanity. The energy shifted. The weight of suspicion gave way to compassion, and small acts of kindness ignited like sparks in the gathering dusk. People began to reach for their phones, calling for more help, mobilizing resources, little gestures demonstrating that, in the midst of chaos, hope could flourish. In the midst of this unexpected alliance, I turned back to the girl. She lay still, a small beacon of light fighting against the darkness that had clouded her world. The medics worked furiously, the rhythm of their heartbeats in sync with every shallow breath she took. I knelt beside her, whispering words of encouragement, promising her that she was not alone. But in that moment of connection, the air trembled with an unsettling presence. I glanced up to see the stranger who had voiced concern earlier, his eyes searching through the crowd, weaving through the well-meaning strangers toward us. The certainty of his next move collided with the vulnerability surrounding us. "What are you doing?" The stranger's voice echoed, dragging my heart into a state of emergency. "You don't even know who she is." "Enough!" my brother roared, stepping between the stranger and the girl, his body taut with protectiveness. "This isn't helping. She's human, just like you and me." But the stranger pressed on, voicing out to the crowd. "And she might be hiding something. We can't be naive." Panic clenched my chest as I caught a glimpse of the girl's eyelids fluttering. This reminded me of the frightening thought I had buried deep within. What if she was linked to something sinister? The weight of possibility hung over us like an ominous cloud, tainting the threadbare joy that had started to blossom. Then, like the turning of a fragile page in a book, the girl's eyes snapped open, the focus of a storm swirling within them. Her gaze flickered between the familiar and the unknown, landing on my brother before crumbling into a lost confusion that mirrored our own. "Who?" Her voice barely rose above a whisper, and my heart lurched at the raw fragility in her tone. "I am here," I said, my voice steady even as I felt my insides quaking. "You're safe. Just hold on, please." But before she could respond, before the hope eclipsed the uncertainty binding me to this moment, another revelation crashed through the crowd like thunder, shattering the collective breath that had hung suspended in the air. "Wait!" the stranger shouted, his voice harsh and piercing. "I know her. She's one of the girls who went missing months ago." Gasps spread like wildfire, spiraling through the crowd, igniting an inferno of confusion and disbelief. Time slowed, each heartbeat echoing against the thunderous silence that engulfed us. With that revelation, the darkness edged closer, menacing in its approach. What lay in the shadows of her past? I knew then, without a shred of doubt, that our journey was only just beginning, a path illuminated by the frail light of love, but shadowed by fear. As I grasped my brother's arm, the world spun into chaos around us, and the ties binding us together felt both achingly fragile and impossibly strong. And deep within, uncertainty settled like stones upon my heart, for our hopes now hung precariously on the edge of a truth that promised to unveil an even darker reality. How far would we go to protect each other, to hold on to the love that had started to shine amidst the shadows? What secrets lay shrouded in her story, waiting to be unveiled? The night had transformed into a whirlwind of chaos, the festival's vibrant colors now muted by the somber weight of revelations. My heart pounded like a drum, each beat reverberating against the walls of fear and uncertainty that threatened to crush me. The girl, barely a few feet away, was connected to a larger narrative of loss and hurt, a narrative that echoed my own brother's struggles. As the crowd surged with a mixture of concern and disarray, I felt an undeniable tug toward the truth. "Missing?" The word slipped from my lips, a tremor laced within it. The stranger's voice settled over us like an ominous fog. "We need to find out what she knows. She might hold the key to answers we've been searching for." The eyes surrounding us narrowed with a mixture of curiosity and suspicion, an electric charge pulsing through the crowd. But just as the heaviness of the revelation felt overwhelming, the small girl shifted on the ground, her gaze still glassy yet filled with the seed of determination. I remember her voice was soft, but it stirred something deep within me, awakening a fierce sense of hope that broke through the despair fogging the atmosphere. "Remember what, sweetie?" I asked, my voice gentle, coaxing her back to the present, fully aware of the weight shifting on my shoulders. "Other girls, they were taken. But I escaped." Her words came raw and fragmented, like shards of glass piercing through the fabric of our make-believe certainty. My heart constricted painfully, and an overwhelming wave of grief washed over me, reinforcing the threads of connection I had woven toward this child's plight. "Thank you for being brave," I whispered, knowing somehow that her strength was a flicker of light in this spiraling darkness, an ember flickering against the gale of doubt. At that very moment, my brother knelt beside me, his face a mask of vulnerability that mirrored my own. "You did escape. You're here now. You're safe," he affirmed, his voice steady amidst the turbulence threatening to unravel the night further. But as the girl's story spiraled around us like a delicate dance, the stranger's influence loomed like a heavy fog. "This is just the beginning," he said, stepping closer, amusement dancing in his dark eyes. "You thought you faced mountains before. Brace yourselves." The crowd shifted, curiosity mingled with caution as my brother turned to face the stranger, an urgency in his stance. "You think this is a game? These are real lives indeed," the stranger replied, his smirk fading, replaced by an enigmatic intensity. "But what do you plan to do with the truth unfolding before you? The choices you make now will ripple far beyond this moment. I don't care about your games," I declared fiercely, the resolve igniting within me a fire I had nearly lost hope in. "Indiana. All I care about is that girl's safety and my brother's survival." The festival noise faded into a haunting lull as my voice cut into the tension. "That we all care," my brother interjected, his piercing gaze fixed on the stranger. "What we really need is to seek help, not make false accusations." That burning resolve birthed a small rebellion against the daunting pressures of trauma and loss. I turned my gaze back toward the girl, steadfast within the eye of this chaotic storm. "Let's get you to a hospital. You can't move her just yet," the medics cautioned, diligently assessing the girl's condition. "But we need to act," I urged, desperation seeping through the edges of my voice. "She deserves all the help she can get. We'll figure the rest out later." And it was then that clarity struck the choice that had been concealed beneath layers of doubt and fear. Light began to seep into the darkness that had threatened to swallow us. A realization that love and hope were boundless, even in the face of overwhelming odds. The warmth woven into my brother's side became a tether, grounding me in the commitment to seek truth not just for ourselves, but for the girls lost within the shadows of secrets. Suddenly, another presence joined the circling ominous figure emerging from the back of the crowd, a police officer ready to take charge. "What's going on?" he demanded, his sharp gaze sweeping the room. Tension thickened instantaneously. "She was missing," the stranger replied coolly, eyes flickering with hidden motives. "And I know more than what meets the eye." A collective gasp rippled through the crowd as my heart raced with dread. But there was something deeper beneath the surface of my anxiety, an ember of determination that pulsed through us. "We need to stick together," I asserted, glancing at my brother and Sarah, who nodded resolutely. "Love is our strongest weapon, not just against fear, but against any darkness trying to impose itself on our lives." "What are you suggesting?" asked the officer, voice steady but laced with urgency. "Work together," my brother replied, his voice unyielding. "Get the girl the help she needs. We know she escaped, but we need to piece together everything to protect her and stop any further tragedies." As the searchlight began to shine over the collective efforts of strangers bathed in the light of love, the girl smiled weakly, her fragile spirit illuminating the gloom. "I wasn't alone," she whispered, and in that simple proclamation, I felt something deep shift within me. Truth of human connection reaffirmed. "Exactly," I replied, heart swelling. "Here, together we will all uphold the promise of safety." The crowd began to move fluidly, whispers turning to strident encouragement. Each moment spiraled into an overwhelming rush of possibilities, suddenly not bounded by fear, but strong in love. The officer began directing the medics to tend to the little girl as we collectively acted, bolstered by the memories of loss, but ignited with a fervor to protect and uplift one another. We transformed the chaos before us into a mosaic of resilience, love, and compassion, the threads binding our community together thicker than the shadows encroaching from the past. We pushed the weight of uncertainty aside, growing vigilant from the clarity of our purpose. The night had become less about what we stood to lose, but rather what we could gain from embracing those around us. Hope blossomed anew, and as the sirens echoed in the distance, I knew we had embarked on a journey deeper than any of us could have imagined. The festival lay behind us, a muted reminder of all we had fought against and all we would carry forward into the dawn. My brother reached for my hand, and our grip mirrored the unbreakable bond glistening through adversity. Together, we turned to the girl, ready to shield her against the darkness much like we'd shielded each other. In that moment, I surrendered to a new reality, realizing that love's resilience could shine brighter than fear. We forged ahead into the unknown, stronger than I had ever believed, possibly a family woven through whispers of hope, promises of solidarity. And as we stepped boldly into the brightness of a new day, I couldn't help but imagine a future, one in which love bloomed amid the shadows, unfurling into a light undeterred by the struggles of life. There, I whispered a silent promise as the first rays of dawn broke, and the echoes of our choices settled gently around us. We will find our way,